Good afternoon, and welcome in to another Titan Talk. It's Friday, and we're joined by Pompon. Wait. Pon, how you doing?
It's been a while since actually someone used that full name.
It just came in my head, and I'm like, wait. Yeah. But Pon's going to be joining us to go over OB25 balance overview today. Obviously, this isn't the full notes, and things may change, but already, Pon, we've got some kind of feedback from PTS that we've been adjusting to things as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Do we crack on, Kilgun? Is there anything else to mention?
No, let's just go for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Straight into the show today. As a minor thing, I should just mention real quick, the notes are going to be available for you. The early overview notes are going to be available on smiteprime.com. So if you head over to smiteprime.com, you should be able to find these notes as well for your viewing pleasure as we get along with this. Let's bring up the screen. Hopefully this works. Yay. Okay, so time to start off with God balance of what we're going to be seeing as part of OB25. First thing on the list here is an Agni nerf to the aspect of combustion. Decrease the tick strength from 2% to 1.5%, decrease the burst level, scaling from 10 to 5. Just a small nerf there, I guess, towards the aspect.
Yeah, we normalized the aspects so it wasn't so crazy early game, which ended up us shifting it to be even a little bit stronger late game. That helped it a lot, but it just needs a little bit more tuning down.
And her next up with a buff as well for shifting sands, increase the damage taken debuff. Was 8 to 20, is now 12 to 24. So going to help that out with a little bit of extra damage coming from that. And then disperse the 3, increase the strength scaling from 60% to 75%. So if you do land on people and use this aggressively or on camps, you're going to clear a little bit quicker.
Yeah, especially if you now like land someone with a disperse into the shifting sands pillar, man, that's gonna hurt a lot more now.
Next up, RTO. Obviously, RTO newer release to the roster that's currently live, and it seems we're going to see a couple of nerfs coming through here towards some of RTO. So, aspect of the Den Mother specifically, the shapeshift, the ultimate, while in aspect RTO no longer gains the benefit of shapeshift's passive movement speed and mana regeneration.
Yeah, aspect doing pretty well, better than her base kit overall, and this is just a lot of power that. For the ultimate now actually doing something doesn't really need to be there. Before the ultimate was just a swap that then kind of gave some passive stats to help out. Yeah. Doesn't really make sense so much on the aspect anymore.
So been shifted away on the aspect version. Decompose, the passive no longer applies anti-heal anymore. And Energy Surge, the Druid 1, now applies anti-heal. So a bit of a shift there, I guess, in terms of like how that anti-heal is applied.
Not just accidental hit by any ability, get anti-healed. Now it's a little bit more intentional in the kit.
Yep.
So there's the Energy Surge. And then More Prey was the final thing on the RTO one as well. On the Bear, now applies anti-heal as well, just to go into with the Decompose there. ESET next on the list, a nerf to Dispel Magic. The silence duration has been reduced. It was 1.5 seconds. It's now going down to a flat 1 second.
This is after we increased the cooldown on this ability in the last update. So it's a good ability.
Yeah, it's really good.
And aspect of the Life Warden, the Wingus, decreased the heal scaling from 6% of protections to 5% of protection. So really just a look at the support aspect there, trying to reduce the amount of CC it's bringing.
Yeah, both versions are strong. Aspect is generally stronger. The Dispel Magic targets both, and then we have one's targeted the aspect.
Hunbat's next on the list, and a nerf here. A general nerf fix an issue where Hunbat's attacks were dealing 5 more damage than 5 more damage. That's insane. Aspect of disruption now. Infused strikes remove the bonus damage, and the sacred monkey decreased strength scaling from 55% to 35%.
It's actually really funny because I actually know how that issue happened with the 5 more damage, and that actually is a non-trivial amount of power at like level 1 to 3. That's actually probably that's going to be more of a big nerf than people probably expect, which is kind of funny in Conquest more specifically.
But the bonus damage going away from the infused strikes, I think, is pretty significant as well.
Yeah, the aspect of Hunbat's version is definitely the one that's favored by a lot of people, even for like the same jungle role. It's probably an aspect we'll go back and look at in general because like we don't want the aspect being used in the same exact role and just being considered kind of a better version of it. So this should temper it a lot, make it so that at least base Hunbat's is more competitive in that type of role, and that might be one that we go back and look at overall.
And the goal for that aspect was always to be more of a support or solo maybe kind of aspect, and not just do as much damage but also get stuns.
So reduce the damage and then just increase the CC, like 2 second stuns, right?
I mean, that's what we've done.
It
does so much less damage, but it doesn't work that way.
Youngunda next on the list with a bit of a shift here. First of all, now classified as a ranged character.
This is the agility nerf.
Yes, this is the agility relic nerf specifically.
This affects certain items' interactions such as agility relic. And note, Jormungandr's movement speed penalty was already set to ranged on release.
Yeah, so this isn't going to double nerf him in the sense that he's also getting ranged penalty. This just makes it so that the interactions that happen are going to be considered more ranged, which is generally more healthy for him anyway as a character that attacks so fast.
Yeah.
The other interaction that I know of is Fatalis, where you get more stacks of the haste for each of your hits if you're melee, but you get less if you're ranged. So that's also applying to him here as well.
Let's have a look at your... next up is going to be Loki with a buff here, the Vanish. Increase the strength scaling on this from 15% to 20%. And Agonizing Visions. Increased damage per tick. It was 13 to 33. Will now be 20 to 40. So definitely an early game buff. Actually, a consistent buff throughout the game there on Agonizing Visions.
Agonizing Vision is going to be better. It's going to help with his clear. And then the extra scaling on Vanish is going to... I don't remember if it's 5 ticks or 4 ticks, but it's a pretty decent scaling strength increase.
Someone in chat, all caps, stop nerfing Mulan. Well, guess what? Mulan's getting a nerf. Grapple. Decrease the protections from 25 to 45 is now 15 to 35, and remove movement speed from mastery bonus. Being real, I think Mulan got a lot of buffs in a row over time, and like she kind of slowly rose to the top of the standings of like God play in terms of win percentage.
She was actually doing decently well even when like people were wanting her buffed. And it doesn't take much to make a character like her with a lot of the abilities that she has and all the utilities she has to be really, really strong. I just because I know it's going to pop up, we do have a decent bug list that was reported in for her about a few kind of different interactions.
Okay, cool.
So it may be that as we go back and fix them, because we just weren't able to get to that this patch.
Yeah.
As we go and fix some of those, maybe we undo some of these changes depending on what the fixes are.
So we shift this again potentially. If needed.
As we fix bugs, we might reevaluate the character strength.
That's completely fair. Next up on the list is Thor, and it's going to be a buff for Thor. First of all, Titanic Rift, the 2. Decrease the cooldown. It was 17 to 15 scaling. It's going to be a flat 15 seconds now. So going to be available a little bit more often. And also the Berserker Barrage, the 3. Increase the spin damage. It was 30 to 110. Will now be 40 to 120. So 10 at each rank. And increase the cone damage. It was 50 to 130. Will now be 65 to 145. So it looks like 15 on that. So extra damage for Thor and more reliable CC more often.
Yep.
And then next up is Tsukiyomi with a buff. Aspect of the manga.
Wait. Shouldn't that say nerf? I feel like we've only ever nerfed Tsukiyomi.
Not the aspect. The aspect is what is underwhelming.
Okay.
So this is for the aspect of Mangetsu. I was definitely confused. I'm like, wait, are we reading this? Piercing Moonlight will increase the dash damage. 75 to 175 plus 40 strength and 65 int is now 120 to 200 with 50 strength and 75 int. So actually a buff throughout that whole thing, scaling and base damage.
Yeah, there's actually something I want to go back onto for the aspect to help and address later down the road. So we might end up undoing this as we get there, but this is a good holdover for now to make the aspect more competitive with the base kit.
Cool. And last god I have on the list today is Xbalanque with a buff for the aspect of the Night Stalker, the aspect version. Branching Bowlers increased the damage base. It was 50 to 150, will now be 70 to 150. So early game bonuses there on the bowler. And increase the scaling of this as well from 35% strength plus 55 int to 45 strength and 65 int.
Yeah, we nerfed this one a lot based off the feedback of like the 2 being just really, really oppressive in its damage. So we're bringing back power not there.
Yeah. Onto the bowler. Make sure you hit the abilities less confirmed with the big co.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And then moving on to items. So I guess a quick overview of items. Relic's got overhauled Pompon. How's the feedback been on it? What were your like thoughts and the team's thoughts considering everyone's kind of seen this now a little bit?
It went over really, really well. I think people are really excited. It's a really big shakeup. The fact that you can actually have multiple of these type of... It's essentially like we've added 6 new active items to the game because you can utilize them in such a different way than them just being locked to the relic slot. It gives people flexibility on being able to pivot their builds in a way they weren't able to before. And we think that the balance point of them where you kind of want to get them later because they have stat scaling on them, and we kind of know we can really fine-tune their power level so that they're not so oppressively strong. We want these effects to have some level of loss compared to like just building a more traditional item.
Sure.
People seem to think that we're in a pretty good spot there as well from early PTS testing. So it just seems like a lot of wins around the board. And
I mentioned, I guess, like moving towards more actives in the game was always kind of an intent anyway, with reducing the amount of relics to have more options and different ways of doing it. So this is one iteration of attempting that. Yeah. So the relic overhaul, you can now use them as components to build. And because of that, you're going to see the new Motive Chaos come into the game. This is 1250 gold and gives you plus 5% stats from items. And this item is used as a component to turn your relics into these actives. Then we'll quickly go over the relics one more time, or the upgraded ones, I should say. The new Blinking Abyss comes from Blink Rune and Motive Chaos, plus 1250 gold, is 25 strength and 45 intelligence, but it's adaptive, so whichever stat you've got higher there, it will default to, and 7.5% stats from items, and on use, teleport up to 5.6 meters. 1 second after the teleport, you'll deal damage of 150 plus scaling in a radius around you, and the cooldown is 140. This can be used in combat, but cannot be used while firing an ability.
Yeah, so this is a good example of one where we also wanted these to be more powerful than their base relic form, and so the fact that you can actually use this in combat is a really big upgrade outside of just the damage that it does and the reward that you get for being aggressive with it.
So there's a look at Blinking Abyss. Next up, Time Lock Aegis. I know we had a couple of reports of some issues with this, but I know we've been looking at that too. But built from Aegis of Acceleration and Mote of Chaos again. Gives you 20 Fizz procs, 20 Magical procs, 7.5% stats from all items. And this active will now make you invulnerable to all damage and healing for 3 seconds, but you are rooted and unable to act. For OG Smite 1 players, it's basically one of those old Aegis of days gone by. However, you can reactivate it to now end this early, which is pretty useful. However, also, while in stasis, you're going to get regeneration for 30 seconds worth of your health and 30 seconds worth of your mana. But more importantly, I guess, is also this 10 seconds worth of ability cooldowns with a cooldown of 140. And I think that ability cooldown is really interesting because you can maybe make some extra plays because you've got that bit of a window.
Yeah, like especially if you have low cooldown like dash and you're like, I just need to survive long enough to be able to dash out of where I'm at right now. You can kind of stay in there. But that gives the team more time to like reposition and be ready to immediately try and get you when you get out of the... It's an interesting like... everyone's going to be kind of like figuring out when exactly this person's going to bait out of their time lock Aegis and try and get away, and you trying to time your things against that.
Need those extra 3 seconds. Maybe that's the window.
Just some things that were also fixed.
Yeah, go ahead.
We added a small delay so that you can't, like while you're mashing it to try and get it to go off, it doesn't immediately cancel.
That's fair.
We also fixed a case where CC was actually causing it to end early. So that should all be fixed and ready when we go live.
And just a heads up, we really appreciate the people that gave us that feedback in the first place, because this is one of the reasons we do the PTS, so thank you so much. Talisman of Purification has had an adjustment. Now builds from Purification Beads and Mote of Chaos. Decreased magical protection, it was 30, it's now going to be 0. Decreased max health, 300, will now be 0. Increased cooldown rate to 15. And new stats, 7.5% stats from items on the Purification.
Yeah, because it's already, it was an existing item that basically was the upgraded version of beads, so we just moved it into the system. It does mean that you can't do beads plus Talisman of Purification the way that you're used to doing, because they will share a cooldown now. But that was something that very few people were already doing. And we also don't necessarily want you to be able to stack up effects like this in this way. If you really need 2 defensive options, we'd rather you go...
Different options than the same option.
Different options than the same option.
That's fair. And Agility Greaves, the next one on the list here. This is built with the Mote of Chaos once again, 1250 gold. You're going to get 5% movement speed and 7.5% stats from all items. And your range gods are going to get 40% attack speed, projectile speed, and 80% after using this active for 3 seconds. And the melee gods, similar thing, 15% attack movement penalty, minus 15% movement penalty. However, it's minus 30% after using this active for 3 seconds. So a few seconds after using the Agility Relic, you'll get a bit of a bonus here to your attacks. And you'll be able to dash in the direction the cooldown's 20 seconds.
Yeah, and a bug we fixed on the PTS was this was giving minus 5% movement speed.
Oh, yeah. So Mercury was in... Because I know Mercury players are the ones that are already like, movement speed and an item giving you back, you know? So I know that's already coming down.
Yeah.
Sundering Arc reworked this item. So Sundering Arc now remove the damage that you were doing flat to an enemy and the dot over time. It's now just going to be a bleed that applied to all enemies, not just gods. And this bleed will do 50 plus 8 per level 3 times over 2 seconds to jungle monsters and bosses, and still deals 25 plus 4 3 times over 2 seconds to everyone else.
Yeah.
However, the Echo version now is going to be Mote of Chaos, 1250 gold. You're going to get 25 strength or 45 intelligence, whichever one you're going into first, plus 7.5% of your stats. And now the bleed will do true damage 3 times over 4 seconds. And enemies who die explode, applying this effect to nearby enemies over 3 seconds. So it basically resets if it hits another person.
Yep, and it can spread from minions. It can, if you're on an objective, you could use it on like the actual fire giant, and when it dies, it's going to spread to anyone who's trying to contest it. Just a lot of applications for this type of spread effect to happen.
So full minion wave is what you're aiming for, and get someone caught in it from the Sunrise. We'll find out how that works.
One day we'll have Kumbhakarna, and you can belly bounce a minion.
A minion into it, like Cupid bombs.
Like Cupid bombs and Serget poison. Yeah, you can do that.
Shell Rebuke is another new one here as well. This is going to be built from Mote of Chaos and 1250 gold once again. 20 Fizz procs, 20 magical procs, 7.5% stats from items. And this will create an area of safety at your location, granting a shield phantom effect to allied gods when they first touch the area. The area mitigates 35% of all damage. That area is pretty potent for 35%.
Yeah.
Up to a maximum of 400 plus 50 per level damage. Glad there's a cap on that. Last 5 seconds and cooldown of 120. I guess the other thing that's not really mentioned in that is if people walk into that area, they'll also get that shell effect as well.
Yep.
And then next up, a new item in the game, Ragnarok's Wake. A lot of people already talking about this one a lot. Builds from Medal of Defense, and 900 gold. So 2 Medal of Defense is there. And this will give you 250 health and 45 physical protections. On use, you can choose a target location after channeling for 2 seconds, become a meteor and fly to that location, dealing heavy damage and knocking enemies straight up upon impact. Cooldown is 140 seconds.
Yep.
Upon this is the most wild one that a lot of people have looked at and gone, wait, what?
Yeah, it's really potent. It's really cool to use too.
Yeah, and I guess the question is like, this is going to be something that's always iterated on as time goes on, right? As we like see how it performs and goes
and we even fix some things. So like, for example, you could use other abilities like casting this. That actually got people into broken states. So we fixed that so that is no longer the case. That wasn't our intent anyway. Yeah. We also made it so that, which isn't on here, but I just submitted it, which is if you get interrupted out of it, it will go on a short 4-second cooldown.
Awesome. Okay,
so that like if you're just constantly spamming it to try and get out of a fight, it's going to be a lot easier for people to interrupt you, and then you're not going to be able to just immediately use it again. It should be useful if you find the opportunity to get away with it. Cool. Yeah. But we really want you engaging with this more.
I agree. I think that's the best way of doing it, especially with just so you know, guys, I definitely was the one complaining about that where it needs some sort of ICD, and I'm the one using it. I'll show you a little clip later, by the way. Moving on.
I do also, it is a little funny just because people mention it, Surturl. Surturl is a bit different because you can actually control your landing. Yeah,
but
and I think a lot of it is just
for a
the
lot of people, I think.
Feel, right? Like, because functionally all this is a very long build-up leap that just happens to go very high.
Looks cool.
Looks cool. If I had made this a watery wind effect that launched you up in the air and you kind of landed on a bubble, I don't know if people would be making the same comparison, but Surturl is still very different in its functionality and its power and everything like that. So it also doesn't mean Surtur's happening because it is just a build-up leap. You haven't built out any new tech.
It'd be the most basic Surtur ever if we just threw that Beazle and called it a day, you know? Jade Scepter is getting a rework. We've removed the current active from Jade Scepter, which was more of a knock away from you. This is now going to be a deployable that you place a Jade current at a target location, and after 1 second, it'll erupt, knocking away any god in the area, including allies. Bit like Bomb, to be honest, from Pyromancer, if anything, in terms of the knockaway. Next up, big one on the list, Lifebinder. Obviously, this got a lot of changes, but we're going to be lowering the intelligence down from 60 to 40. A lot of people said, like, when we did that shift, we gave it more intelligence to make it worthwhile, but people are still finding it too potent.
Yep. Yeah. We wanted to shift it away from, I think we largely resolved a lot of its early, like, level 1, like, how much it could control the laning phase. I think supports are, in general, a bit more healthy now that it doesn't feel like it's so dominant in the role. Yeah. But it's still too overutilized, still overwhelming in general. So reduced intelligence here is going to hit it pretty hard.
Regrowth Striders as well is going to lose 5% of its, 5 of its cooldown rate. When I say percent, it was 15, it's now going down to 10. Still a great item, lots of mobility from it, and I don't think it's going to change much, but having a little less cooldown should maybe bring it more in line.
Yep.
Scepter of Dominion as well, having a small buff here, even though it can be frustrating for some in some regards in terms of the windup, but now the decreased build-up time, it was 1.5 seconds, will now be a flat second, so a bit easier to deploy in that area. And I believe the last on the list is Sphere of Negation, which is a nerf. Decrease the magical protections from this item, 70 down to 60.
Yeah, Sphere of Negation actually went to... So I have like a query that I can run that weighs how much this item impacted the win rate of the game. And Sphere of Negation actually ended up being the top performer after the changes because an easy way to think about it as an item is that shield is max health. So now imagine that item and just read the amount of health that you have, and 15% of it's max health, and that's the stat that's on the item. Yeah. That happens to get more and more health if you have a longer and longer window fight happen. And just the amount of stats in that regard that it's providing is really, really, really high. So we wanted to make sure that it felt strong because we were drastically changing it and giving it a whole new passive, but overall it is too effective at mitigating magical damage right now.
Well, there's a little look at the balance overview. Obviously, there's a ton more that's going on in the patch we kind of covered on Wednesday. However, the full notes will be available next week, just before release. However, you want to look at those overview notes once again, they're available on SMITE Prime, where you can go over and take a look there. I did have, Pon, you don't know about this, but I did clip that little Ragnarok's Wake situation that I had happen today, if you remember.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, I clipped it, and like, for those at home, oh no, okay, hang on 1 second. I just saw something very small.
Oh, can we not show it?
We can. I'm just going to show it from a certain point. Okay.
Oh.
So this is from a playtest earlier today. I have hidden as much as I can. Not going to show anything, but just something that happened related. I've not got the audio played for this either because you don't need the audio, but I'm playing ESET support. Don't ask about the build. I'm testing stuff, as you can tell. But this is me. I'm out of there, boys. No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
I
Get
got
out.
pulled all the way back in.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Just for the
you.
interaction. It looked great where I'm like, yeah, I'm out. But
Later.
pulled all the way back in once again. And there's a little look at that. You may see one or two sneaky things in there, but you won't see too much that we're not happy with showing you. Just wanted to show you that, like, we are testing stuff behind the scenes, but also how the interactions work, because we mentioned that on the show on Wednesday of, like, can you get, like, pulled out of it almost?
Yep.
And there's a little look at that. So we got to 123, got through balance overview,
Yeah.
and I guess it's time to just sit and Q&A with chat now
Yeah.
and take any questions. It's been a minute, because sometimes I feel like some of these shows all we do is take questions because we don't have anything else.
some
And other
shows
days we
give a lot
don't
of
get a
stuff.
chance to ask
Well, yeah,
questions.
we went over
To
so
answer
much of
questions.
it on Wednesday
Yeah.
is part of it, right? And also because of all the changes to the relics, so we're individual bounce changes too much.
Yeah.
So.
Does the 7.5% stats increase stats that are granted by item passives? For example, will the intelligence and mana granted from Book of Thoth or power from Tahuti increase by the 7.5%?
So the general way to think about it is, and I'll try to make this as simple as I can. If it's a percentile increase, a Rada Tahuti,
Yeah.
percentile increases can't be considered from item, because if they were, then they would feed into themselves, and then you get 20% more of that feed, and it would infinite loop.
It'd be looping.
So the percentage increases like that are just one flat off things that are separate,
Makes
and they
sense.
don't actually get considered as protection from items. So like when like Gladiator Shields is protection from items, for example, if you have an item that gives you 15% physical protection, it actually doesn't feed into that, because that 15% bonus is not actually protections from items.
Okay.
So Book of Thoth, because it's just a flat amount of intelligence per mana you have, that does count. And so it would give you 7.5% of that, but it doesn't give you 7.5% of the bonus that Rod of Tahuti's applying. One's percentage, one's flat.
Logically does make sense. A little bit difficult to understand for
Yeah.
some people, but at the same level, I think you should be able to read between it in terms of what you're probably expecting to get from it.
Yeah, and that's why I also like I've considered a few times going back on like Gladiator Shield and like making it just protections again and tuning it accordingly, because it does mean that like you would think that like, oh yeah, I'm getting a super high protection build. There are these items at the end of the game that are like meant to be protection boosting things. They actually don't play well with Gladiator Shield in the way that people expect. So I kind of want to better respect that with some items, but in this case, that's just how this will work for the 7.5% stat increase. And it's also, I saw some people asking about exactly how that works. Is it just strength or int? It's all stats from items. So movement speed, if you have one from items, which now can actually happen. Cooldown rate, which I actually fixed. It wasn't doing that. Aladdin's Lamp wasn't doing that either. Physical protection, magical protection, any stat that you can get from items. Penetration is also boosted by it.
Do Thor buffs apply to his aspect as well? No, it actually says on the notes, aspect remains unchanged. So only base Thor is getting the love towards that.
Yep. Is there a reason for the poor balancing of the game and the terrible matchmaking? Why are no resources invested into that? So yeah, there are actual reasons for the balance decisions we make. And we also do spend some time. So I think today was supposed to be, we were talking about doing this.
Yeah.
But I've been doing matchmaking experiments for the last 3 weeks or so. You make a change, you kind of have to wait to see how it actually pans out, because you can't get immediate feedback about how it's changing the queue. You have to kind of wait for a full day. You can iterate it on it and stuff like that. So we actually have some stuff to show on matchmaking probably on Monday.
Yeah, we're gonna go through that in the Hindu Man Not Here show. You know,
Oh, is
give
that
us
what it's
something to talk
called?
about.
Is the Not Hindu Man show? Yeah,
And
sounds
I
good.
think item balance is one of those things where it's like, depending on where you play the game, you might feel that you aren't being listened to in regards to the balance feedback that you're getting. But ranked conquest is different than high ranked conquest, which is different than casual conquest, which is different than joust, which is different than arena. We generally balance around a pretty medium to high level of conquest play. But even things like, so for example, I was running a query for items to like nerf. I was trying to get like some statistical understanding of like where items fell.
Yeah.
And one interesting thing I had to do to get like Magi's Cloak. We get constant complaints about Magi's Cloak from very, very high ranked players.
Sure.
But if you actually run any state about how often it's being built, what its win rate is, and all that stuff, you basically don't see it at all.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I basically said, okay, I'm going to consider a ranked player, a top ranked player. They're going to 10x their voting power in regards to this statistical query. And finally, it showed up on a list.
Okay.
Right? As to like a like statistical query of like how things are running. So like if you're at the top end of play, Magi's Cloak is something that's absolutely running the experience of a lot of the lobbies you're playing.
Right.
Whereas every other player, which is 98% of the entire SMITE player base, doesn't see this at all. So if we address and nerf Magi's Cloak, I think it's reasonable for someone who's playing Arena. Like, do you not even care about the Arena players right now? Like, how are we supposed to deal with Ares running at us all this time? Versus the top rank players, if we don't nerf it, I have gotten the complaints of why has this gone unnerfed for 7 patches?
Yeah.
Right.
I will bring up the fact that we brought up Ares and Magi's Cloak there because I know that's been a debate internally of like exactly how that's supposed to work.
Yes,
Do we have a definitive of
well,
how we feel on that? Because I didn't want to bring that to the forefront,
Sure.
but you kind of did.
Yeah,
So.
so some of it is I hacked Magi's Cloak in,
Right.
and it can only work in certain circumstances in certain ways right now.
Okay.
And we will eventually circle around to fixing it and getting it to match SMITE 1 parity of implementation.
Okay.
But it felt better to actually have it in the game addressing most things.
For sure.
Not, right?
Good explanation, at least, just to go through that.
So when you have generally a balance complaint, it's probably more helpful to explain what you're playing, where you're playing, and your specific issues that you're having with balance. Because it's probably what I actually see happen a lot of time is I'll see like 10 people say, wow, SMITE's balance is terrible.
Yeah.
And then someone will be like, okay, well, what's wrong? And someone will post actually what they think is wrong. And then they'll get absolutely piled on about how dumb their opinion is.
Yep.
Because
that just happened because everyone's got a different opinion.
Because everyone has a different opinion about it. And so we're trying to make sure that we get the right balance of addressing the things. We also are working on new characters, a whole bunch of new features coming in. So there's also only a certain amount of time we can dedicate to this stuff. Like my matchmaking stuff has largely had to be on the side of what I'm doing investigation.
Because you've still got to do other things as well to continue the process. Yeah.
So we are trying to make progress. I hope these shows show that we're being pretty transparent about what we're doing in those regards. But yeah, if you're going to give the feedback, it is generally helpful to say like, here's why I play.
Definitely.
Here's what is currently frustrating me and why.
Definitely.
And that's more helpful overall.
Really going back to the like, listen, if you think the game is unbalanced, please mention what you think is unbalanced because people will disagree with you. Because people go, yeah, it's unbalanced. I'm like, yeah, it is unbalanced. And you're like, well, carries are really strong. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the solo laners. They're so tanky. Like, it's always going to be a viewpoint of the individual who plays those roles too.
There's a question, who's receiving the next aspect coming into the game and what is it? On the show on Wednesday, we went through the 3 aspects in our holiday mega patch.
We did.
The next aspect, I believe we settled on is going to be the Geb aspect, which is a rework of his existing aspect of Calamity where he becomes a carry. He has ranged basic attacks. He throws boulders or fighter jets if you're using the Geb 1 skin. Then after that will be the Newt support aspect of the Cosmos. Where she gets a cleanse on her dash and her 2 becomes a stun in the center. And her 1 gives her allies little extra firing things.
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry, the 3 I was thinking you were saying that. Yeah.
And then after that will be Cuckoo aspect, which turns him into close range, burst mage with some jungle priority.
Definitely lean in jungle with some of the aspect state web. So yeah, 3 aspects on the way.
Edgewing, send either a report through the Discord or through the bug report form because, yeah, we'd want to look at that and be able to fix it before she goes out.
Also, I guess I mentioned on Geb aspect as well, Pon. I know me and you spoke about a couple of extra things that probably come with Geb aspect, right?
Yeah, Geb aspect got 2 changes. One's a buff, one's a nerf. He was scaling down to 0% on his 2 rather than the...
At the end of the...
at the end of it, rather than the intended 80% that it's supposed to. 80% would be really, 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 really strong.
Yeah, I was going to say 80.
So I nerfed it to 40.
Okay.
So it's up from 0 to 40%.
Okay, at the end.
At the end. So not going to the full 80. So when I fixed it, I buffed him, but I didn't buff him to the degree I could.
So if you're close range and you use the 2, you're going to do 80.
No, do 100%.
Okay, sorry.
And then it'll decay to 40.
Decays to 40. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other one was more of a nerf.
Yeah, it was more of a nerf. Minion knockback not only applies on the first hit. We have a lot of first hit logic for him, so like you can't get death toll procs on every single minion wave.
Yep. I did that one.
Yep, you did that one. The minion knockback will now also only apply to the first one that you hit, which means that his ability to control the wave is going to be a lot more mitigated because of that.
He'll take a little bit more damage too because he was able to just keep pushing things away so they couldn't fire as well, which was pretty useful. So small changes towards the Geb aspect, and we'll continue to look at that too.
Sentiment in the community was junglers are already strong. Now that side lanes have less farm, I'm concerned that junglers will start to run the game. We'll have to see. I don't know if anyone, like I've tried, when we make big changes like this, it's often really actually hard to predict what's going to happen just because a lot of things are fundamentally going to change.
Yeah.
Because like One other way to look at that is now that the side jungles are gone, well, where are the carries going to go from more farm?
They're going to go into the jungle, probably.
The jungle.
Or stay in lane and just wait around.
Right.
They're the two options. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like
Play more aggressive.
You might end up seeing that actually laners go into the jungle more often now
to steal some farm.
To steal some farm from the jungler, and maybe the jungler ends up being a little bit weaker overall because of that, right? Like I don't know if it's as easy to predict what's going to happen there, but we'll watch accordingly and see what's going to happen. We also have a whole bunch of other shakeups with Conquest. We also have all the relic things going to, I'm sure, shake up the meta as well.
Yeah.
So some of that's just going to be, we'll have to wait and see. We could try and preempt it, but there's a level of like, if you make the wrong guess and you preempt the wrong way, you've created a worse result than just kind of letting to see how it pans out and letting the community decide, like, oh yeah, here's actually where things are falling.
That's fair, because there's definitely an idea in the community of what's going to be the case once it goes live, but then the actual fact of once you're in the game, it doesn't always pan out that way, or things adapt, for sure. People discover someone else is stronger than they realized.
Yeah, also junglers, for example, like, I know I could go gank the solo lane and then immediately jump over to the duo lane and like pressure them. That's I can't do that anymore, right? So like that's also a tool that's been removed. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen.
When is the first January patch? I believe it's currently scheduled for the 13th of January. It's 4 weeks from next Tuesday. So we'll patch on next Tuesday with Newt and all the other stuff in this update. And then 4 weeks after that will be the next update. But we will have the aspects releasing during this update. We have a couple other things that we'll turn on, and we'll talk about those when we get there.
Good news for the person saying combat blink, please. You can buy it next patch.
Yeah,
already in there.
2,500 gold.
It's called Blinking Abyss.
Yep.
Why can't I get it for free?
Because it was really strong when you could.
Any plans on a 2x event over the holidays? I think we'll look at doing a 2x event over the Christmas period. I don't have exact dates yet, but probably a couple of days around Christmas if we can make that happen.
Will combat blink be able to use during abilities again? No. So this is something that like I think people like it in regards to the concept of it, but it does create some really unhealthy, like, a lot of the PvP balance of the game is around being able to react to things and be able to understand what's happening. And like, there are certain trade-offs that characters are making that like should probably stay respected. For example, Ymir roots himself to ult. Yeah, it's cool that he can blink to do that and buy an item that lets him bypass that weakness, but it's also a weakness that probably should be respected. And so, because like it also doesn't quite make sense why he's able to move in that situation. Things like Chalk ult being able to blink makes a little more sense because like you're not literally rooting yourself, but again, like you have to have some consistent rules that players play by. So if Ymir can't do it, it probably makes sense for Chalk not to be able to do it, because while you're firing abilities, you can't just fire other abilities. It just creates a more consistent expectation of what's going to happen. And we can create things that let you break and bend the rules in certain places, but there's some rules that probably should remain respected.
There's a question about can we add an item to teleport to a ward? That's something that in Smite 1 we had a relic that allowed you to teleport to ward once you upgraded it. And we do have the voice line place a word for teleport, in the game right now.
True.
The thing that is preventing that from existing is primarily the UI to allow you to select the ward that you want to teleport to, and that is it seems like it should be easy, but there is specifically getting it to work well on console and PC, like both inputs to select on a pop-up map where you want to go is just more challenging than you would think. Also, two other things we could potentially you could do something like more like a ult targeter, where you can just like I'm looking at the thing and I teleport to it, right? But we do also just have the base teleporters now in the game. So if you're trying to like get around the map quickly, you can back and then teleport out, and
gets the Nagas now too.
And now you can teleport to the Nagas, right? So there's a lot more ways to get around the map than there were in Smite 1. So things don't necessarily need to be one-to-one the same.
Yep. Dave, who's commenting about the God Builder, I do not know specifics. I actually have very little insight into that overall. If you have a consistent bug that you can reproduce and you can showcase easily, record it, send it in the bug report form, and we'll definitely take a look at it.
SMITE2.com/bugs. I'm going to keep saying that every show. Please send the bugs in, and clips with those bugs are definitely useful for us to get ahead of.
Yeah, the more details you can provide, because you'd be surprised how, like, this is actually something we came up with when we did the item store rework in Smite 1, was you would make an update to the item store in Smite 1, and then someone in the playtest room went, I actually interact with the item store in a completely different way than you expected, and you have broken my entire flow, and everything is bad now. And we're like, wait, you do what with your item store?
Half of the early Smite 2 item store sucking was just finding all of the different weird ways that people interacted with the Smite 1 item store and replicating it, right?
So what might be obvious to you of like, oh yeah, I just opened the item store and it's immediately broken. You are probably opening the item store and doing something in a slightly different way that is unexpected. So the more details you can provide, the better.
A lot of people were excited about the surveys. I'm sure you don't have much data yet, but are you getting a good response rate? Yeah, I mean, we have, several thousand responses so far, which is,
response number is great, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's a small fraction of the overall player base. We have tens and tens and tens of thousands of people that play the game every day, but it gives us a good idea of what the more engaged percentage of our player base is looking at in terms of gods that they prefer or not. I would say 90% of it lines up with kind of what we thought before we started the survey, but there's a couple gods that are a little bit different than we had perceived them.
Some shifted up, some shifted down is what I'd say based on what we've seen on the early days so far.
Things are directionally in like where you expect them to be. The other interesting thing is the pairwise version and the ranking version.
Slight differences.
They're very similar, but the differences that are there are interesting because they're really strong signal different. So I don't know how we're going to reconcile those two pieces of feedback. What it probably means is, because like I don't think anyone is like 50th on like the normal survey and like second on the pairwise. Nothing's ever that extreme.
Exactly.
But there's like characters I think that are like in the 10s to 20s that are actually in like the top 6.
Yeah.
And so you probably like kind of average them to some degree, which is just interesting.
We were talking right before this about some of the god schedule for next year and just like if they're, based on the results of this, if there's some that we want to shift. The first few for next year are pretty set in stone at this point. But, as we get a little bit further into next year, maybe we interpret this a little bit and move some things around.
And I think that's the one thing for the community. Thank you so much for the feedback, and please continue to do those survey things because we will utilize them. However, it's not going to change anything overnight because everyone went, oh, we need Bakasura in game right now. You didn't say Bakasura in game right now, but I'm using him as a great example.
I am sad though because like 4 of my mains are like in the bottom 10.
I saw the bottom 10 list, and I'm like, yeah, this feels kind of
feels like what you
I have a
expect.
type that I like that is not popular.
We're not going to name them because then everyone's going to be like, oh man, my main's gone. They don't care about me. It's not the intention of this at all.
Is that survey on the Smite 1 home screen? Maybe that's tailored to them. Can we target some of those people's feedback to get why they're not on Smite 2 yet? Yeah, so the survey is on both Smite 1 and in Smite 2.
Correct.
And then there is a survey, like there's questions at the beginning of the survey to see
actively play
how much you actively play both the games. So we can filter it by that to try and see, what appeals to certain people. There are people that are answering the survey that have only ever played Smite 2 and have never played Smite 1.
That was the great thing to see is just like the newer players coming through, haven't played Smite 1 before, playing Smite 2 and giving active feedback of what they want to see. Definitely, I guess if they're giving some feedback on the gods too, they're kind of like, oh, that one sounds cool. That picture looks great. If they've not really, played Smite 1 before at all, that's kind of an interesting take.
Yeah, actually that would be really interesting. Like
take the dates down.
Look at the pairwise one because if you're new to Smite 2 and you actually don't know what the gods do, and you're at that point actually evaluating just
card
the
art
picture.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is kind of interesting. I wonder how many of them are actually like going up to go look up the kits. Probably not. Many.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put a whale there versus, I don't know, Bakasura, that's a hard one for somebody that doesn't know. Like, wait, I can play as a whale? What?
Yeah.
Any news about God rollout, or is that from Monday's show? Full roadmap God rollout stuff. Probably it's gonna be till after the holidays. Probably be once we get back early next year.
I will say a lot of people in chat have asked that question multiple times the last week, and it's the same people where we're like, guys, it'll be next year, on the roadmap. There's a lot. I get the love for it, but there's always a lot of greed of literally we have just announced multiple gods, multiple things. It's like, okay, what's next? But what's next? Give us a beat.
Is it possible to implement live calculations of tooltips on items that use percentage or other formulas? Actually, it is very difficult. I've tried a few ways of cheating this in. The tooltips for items is a different system than the tooltips for abilities, and so they don't take the same arguments and work with formulas the same way. There's a way to kind of cheat it, but it doesn't look good, and it breaks under a lot of cases and doesn't account for a lot of things. Like, for example, the Rada Tahuti interaction. It wouldn't actually show, even if I got it working, it wouldn't showcase Rada Tahuti's bonus effect that way. So it'd be nice to go back and look at that at some point. But right now, they just don't work that way.
Thoughts on CCR items?
I would like to probably bring that stat back at some point. I don't think it's a catch-all answer for the like amount of CC type. I think people bring it up generally in like the one relic discussion and the amount of CC in the game.
And CC buffering, I guess, is another reason why it's kind of come into play.
Yeah, I think now that CC buffering is I don't know if we actually are deciding whether we keep it or not. I think we're still like I think the big thing that I've largely taken from the fact that we've turned it on and off and a few times now is I don't know if it matters that much. I think people who are going to play Smite end up playing Smite kind of regardless, and it's a different. You're moving the pain around a little bit, but the pain is still there.
The pain is
so
still
I don't
there.
I don't know if it actually.
It was
matters.
in the right shoulder. It's now in the left shoulder, so it doesn't hurt as bad. But eventually, it will hurt. You know.
Yeah, and some people like they're lefties, so they care more about their left shoulder hurting. But
Agreed.
Like,
you have more of a knock-on effect.
I don't know if it matters that much at the end of the day. But like for example, if CC buffering is gone, that would be an argument more for having something like CCR to kind of address that feel.
That's fair.
It's just one of those things that like we also have to make a whole new section on the store to make sure we support it. We'll have to go make the tier 2 items to support it. We'll have to go and make sure that like evaluate the existing items and see where it goes. I think generally when you actually run the pass of adding CCR to things, the amount of stats you lose to get that CCR, I think people are gonna be like, oh, that item feels weaker to me now.
Sure.
So it's one of those things that like when we bring it in, it'll be a decent amount of work for us. So we just want to make sure that when we do it, we can dedicate the time to actually do the full pass.
I will say also, I feel like buffering at this point now is kind of the case of like you'll complain either way if you die in a game. You'll be like, man, CC buffering's missing, or man, CC buffering didn't help me.
Yeah.
So New Sunder won't burst objectives anymore.
Correct.
It's just damage. Yeah, that's correct. So
It's a bleed dot damage. They will consistently apply a dot over time now, rather than a burst of damage.
But it should help you like jungle clear more quickly if you get it as a jungler. Like it's still like.
Still effective.
It's still effective. It just isn't going to be the confirm kill button for objectives.
Just bring back old hog. Bring back old hog, right? I'm telling you, Pon. We make the health bar turn yellow again when it's time to hog, and we just do that.
I'd be curious how people, because the piece of feedback that I've heard multiple times is it feels bad to feel obligated to getting this.
I agree.
And I come from League of Legends as my first game I ever played, and I was a jungler, so I'm used to the Smite game was the mini game that I played.
Yeah.
So like I don't mind that loop, but I think a lot of people do.
I think the issue is though that when we discuss like the League version versus the Smite version, it's the poor old support that gets forced into it, not the jungler as such, which is a kind of a
and I know they're not comparable in the same way.
Yeah.
I'd be curious how people feel about more like I think the instantness of it is one thing that makes it feel very, very mandatory.
Yeah.
Like for example, if we made an item that was like a mini runic bomb that you'd throw and be able to knock people out. Like imagine we made Jade Scepter do 200 damage,
right?
But do 1,000 damage or like 800 damage to
an objective. Yeah.
But it had that 1 second build up. That's probably more fair because then it can actually be more competitive with other characters.
You can fight against it with a burst.
You could potentially stop your burst because you saw it happen too early. Like, I think that's probably a more interesting world to explore of that type of effect.
Yeah.
It being on a relic made it feel like it was obligated for people to go, and then it also made that like you felt like it was the I think Inbound said this literally. I go Galler Flare, see if they have it. If they
and then
don't,
go and
I'm gonna
invade.
walk over and invade. I'm
so
just
the early game like steal potential is one reason for it, but the second one, which is I think is kind of a down one, is 500 damage to a Gold Fury secure. It's low damage. Now we're not going to have that. Fine, but now it means that everyone's going to complain the mages didn't burst the objective down, or you didn't have objective secure, which is going to happen a lot more in games now, because everyone was using Sunder as an excuse.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they sundered us. Oh, this item's terrible. Well, now you're going to deal with the same thing with a Scylla hopefully coming through on time, or a Kraken, or a Cuckold Canal. Who knows? But it's out of the game now. Bleed is back.
Yep. Actually, it's a lot of damage just like as you're clearing it.
I noticed that. I'm actually think that poison bleed that's going to come from that is going to be pretty potent.
Yeah.
Because once people start to realize if you go the upgraded version, they can just like get a big team fight off, everyone's going to disappear.
Yeah.
A couple people asking questions about like when is full release, when we're ready. I don't really have a firm date for you. You know, I think it's just I don't
know what do the fans expect the full release is going to change so far, I guess is the question.
Yeah.
Like I know me and Clumsy have talked about like at least like 2 or 3 pretty big system-wide changes that like we have like cooking and we want to like be able to work through and see how they affect the game. So like I know that we have some things that we want to get done that we think are meaningful improvements to the game still. Obviously getting more gods is a meaningful improvement to the game. What you actually package together in a full release and like when you have the time to be able to package all those things together in the same go. Like, I do think that there's like a level of things that we definitely want in before we have that full release type of like, because that'll be kind of our like last chance to make a really good impression.
Yeah.
Right. And we want to make sure like we are working on this game, trying to iterate through it and make it the best it can be. We want to make sure that we get there when we pull that trigger.
Have you considered giving the Titan CC or some kind of an attack pattern to play around, or even things such as Phoenixes dropping down some fireballs? Yeah, I think what we've learned about Smite is that like there's kind of a fine line to play of making the objective too challenging versus trying to drive combat between players as the core focus of the game, right? Yeah. I think that having a little bit of, the jungle camps do their one little ability, Fire Giant has like his 2 or 3 abilities that he does.
Yeah.
But none of it is really a skill check once you've seen it before. The first time you see it might surprise you, but it's not like hard to do. And if you make it too hard to do, then it can take away the PvP combat that really should be the focus of the game.
Yeah, I actually think one thing that the Fire Giant does really well is he does have that attack that makes the floor lava, in a big cone. And you really don't see it that often unless you're having a really extended longer fight, you're using it as a bait potential, and then like the fight has gone on long enough that now that's a meaningful impact to play. I could see something like the Titan enraging after 20 or 30 seconds of fighting and like just blasting everything around it. Because if you're just juggling it constantly and you're kiting it around the room and like
I love that
you're delaying.
Because to be honest, if people are doing that, they're generally trolling the end of the game because they've won the game or something and waiting for respawn. So like, have him nuke him would be great.
I think like that type of thing is cooler because like that's if like the enemy team's job is to defend their Titan, it's not the Titan's job to defend itself. Like obviously it can fight back a little bit, but like if you make it too hard, the games just don't end in a meaningful way.
That's the thing about it. It's the final boss, right? But at the same time, it's the final boss. You've done all these objectives to get to this point, and now you're going to deal with another raid boss, like to try and take down at the end with everybody else.
Yeah.
After Phoenixes, towers, fire giants,
I can also even see things like, this is not saying we're doing this, but like the Phoenixes drastically weaken it. Like maybe like he gets like some part of its attack gets removed as each Phoenix dies. So like, there's more meaningful nerf to it as it
throws him into his own fountain. That's my pitch. Like if they stay in there too long, he'll throw you into their own fountain.
He just does like a Xingtian style like grab.
Perfect. Whoever's got aggro on, get him in the fountain. That'll fix it.
Hell yeah.
Why didn't we choose to do the Bacchus Santa skin for this patch? It feels weird having.
That's a good question.
Long Cat Yorm over upset. Another Christmas skin.
I was upset about no Bacchus.
So the main reason why I'm answering this question is because we generally, even when we're on a theme, we try and have things in the patch that are not on the theme.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we get to a patch where if you don't want Christmas skins, you aren't going to buy a damn thing, and that has not proven to be a good strategy for us in the past. Like. We have tried going really hard on themes in a specific patch before, and it never has worked out for us. So we find it's much better to have like, here's a couple things related to the moment or the theme, whatever, and then here's some other things that you might want to buy if you aren't interested in that. So that's why we tried to mix it up.
Yeah, and even though I was at the Bacchus one, I want to point out Bacchus does have quite a few skins already, so I think sharing the wealth around to some of the ones that didn't like Fenrir is pretty useful too. So, but I was trying to mix it up there.
Is it making such drastic changes right before going on holiday break or risk?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We do have a week or so where we can, get changes in. The week of the patch, I think most people will still be around. It's the next week, really, that people will be out. So hopefully, if there's anything crazy, we'll be able to get it hot fixed. But yeah, there's a little bit of risk to it. But
being real with your community, like most of the staff that work on this game will respond after hours all the time. We all do, whether you realize it or not. Like, I just know this quite. And if you see me in the chats and in channels and in games, I'm around. But so is the rest of the team. So that's why I'm just gonna let you know. Like, even though we do want to take a break, we'll keep an eye to make sure nothing's too broken. I'm gonna say that I hope, but I will stand firm. Of like, if there's a real big issue, I'll be asking them to turn something off if there's a problem.
Yeah, like it also depends. Like, if it's on like the 20th and we get a bug report and the fix takes 10 minutes to do, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If it's the 24th and this item is breaking in the game and we look at it briefly and go, oh, this is going to be a nightmare fix. It is just going to turn off.
And I think you guys can all accept that at home. Like, that would be the case. If we do, it's probably the better option for us to do rather than just leave it over the Christmas period anyway.
Yeah. I think it's most likely that will need to be turned off. Probably Ragnarok's Wake. I'm sure there's going to be. It's either time lock.
People
or
are getting
it's going to
5-man
be-
with that. That's what I'm going to say. Like, that is the first thing that people want to do is group as a 5-man stack and Ragnarok one person
Yeah, but
with
I
all
can.
5, which I think is great.
But if we can nerf that, that takes 5 minutes to fix. I'm more worried about like someone getting stuck as the boulder
air?
or in the like air,
Okay.
or like I'm more worried about like time lock. For some reason, the Aegis effect doesn't ever go away, and you're just able to move and do things.
Great.
Like, that's more
The
what
real
I'm-
scare ones that we're after there, right?
Okay,
Like
that,
infinite
that's more what
CCD.
I'm worried about of actually breaking. But I added extra safety checks to a lot of this stuff, so hopefully it doesn't happen. But we'll see. I always try, but like the way the game can break often is like very surprising to me sometimes. And I look at the code, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Like, yeah, it's doing what I told it to do. I just didn't think that was going to be a problem.
I'm late. What did the Titans talk about? You're gonna have to watch the VOD, dude. It's almost over. Can't recap the whole thing.
Not much.
Thoughts on the Game Awards? Did you guys watch Jeff Keighley's
Didn't-
advertising extravaganza?
didn't
Or-
catch
I
much
did
of it
not
last night.
watch it at all. I forgot it was happening until it was like
It was that our Critical Role, and it's Critical Role night, so I was watching D&D. That's what I did.
Smart choice.
Yeah.
However, for the most part, from what I can tell about Game Awards as time's gone on, it's more of advertisements more than anything else. And I can just wait till the next day and go, oh, that's coming out. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to go to bed at 9 p.m. because Finn had just finished eating, and we're like, okay, we're
Oh,
gonna
dude, you
it.
take that. Hell yeah. Yeah. I will say the only thing that I am particularly excited about is new Control, because the first Control was.
Oh, they
insane.
bought a new controller?
There's gonna be a
Okay.
new
I
Control,
still need
yeah.
to play that because that's
It's so good.
because that's the one that has like I'm a super big fan of like the SCP organization. and,
Yes.
like, all
Oh,
that
dude, you'd
stuff.
love it then.
And,
Yeah.
and I
it's so
started
good.
it, but I didn't actually get to complete it. So like, and I've been told multiple times that as a person who likes that, I would really, really, really like Control. It is on my list of things to do that is just ever growing.
The Jeff slander is crazy. I have beef. I have no beef with Jeff. I've talked with Jeff. He's a nice guy. I just think it's called the Game Awards, but the Game Awards are the secondary priority of the show. The priority is showing off the advertisements for the new games, right? And it's just like, I just think the name of it is misleading, and that's my one thing. But Jeff's a great guy. He does a lot of good stuff for the industry. I have absolutely no qualms with Jeff in particular. I just think the show is, an award show that's an excuse to run ads.
Time for a weekend pawn stream of Control. See, here's the thing. If I couldn't stream before, I really can't now, because like getting more than 30 minutes at a time of doing anything now that like, especially because like Finn's only like 2 months old.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't happen.
No.
So like the idea of like streaming, why like I might just have to like randomly like last night, Finn, there's something about the milk that we given him. He was not happy about it, and so he had a really upset stomach, and so I just had to like pick him up and walk him around for like 30 minutes. It just happens.
Yeah.
So the idea of like streaming is like, it's not happening. Frostbound return. Yeah. So I think generally people don't like being slowed. As much as someone who likes, like, one thing I liked about the old Smite 1 system, like way back in beta, was I played Thor with Frostbound or Gem of Isolation. And because you could build just Gem of Isolation on Thor, like in the early beta.
Yeah.
Because I just liked the idea of slowing someone with a double tap.
That's
right.
fair.
Like, and that was just the thing I like to do. But it's also like, you have to respect what other people like, which is not getting slowed as much. And generally when those items are strong enough to be a reasonable portion of play, it does bring the gameplay to a crawl. So we'll probably be very, very, very careful of those types of effects, or balance them like Gem of Isolation is currently balanced, which is it's probably a weak item overall to have the capacity to be able to slow people pretty much at all.
Also, Winged Hussar. Like, I love that item. That is a go-to for me when there's a lot of slows. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I just don't.
Yeah, we had a playtest where like there's a Gem of Isolation and like 3 slowing characters, and we were all on the enemy team like, nope, we're all going
Winged.
Hussars.
It's expensive, but it does the job. Kilgan, a lot of people mentioned the Prism Chest. I guess we didn't cover the Prism Chest, funny enough, in the show because we had so much to go over.
Yeah, well,
didn't
it's
realize
not
it was
going to
gonna
be
be
it's not going to be out when the patch releases. So
Oh, okay,
we
okay.
aren't talking about things that aren't out when the patch releases.
That's fair. Obviously, because they've seen it in PTS is probably one of the reasons, and gone from there.
Yep, we
Cool.
test things, but it doesn't mean it's exactly what you see.
There you go.
Will there be any changes in junglers to bring them back into the meta? Well, we have Cuckoo Aspect, which will be interesting to see how that one goes. I do think we probably need something to help in junglers in general, just because like I actually find that like on a lot of the in junglers, I might actually rush like a strength item and transfer it into like a Titan's Kosh, just because that little bit of extra strength for clear speed is actually pretty meaningful.
Yeah, I do feel like that's the one issue with the Cuckoo Aspect. I feel like your first clear is a little slow. But after that,
Yeah.
you're pretty good. It's
Yeah,
my
7 seconds
experience with
forward
that
helps a lot.
aspect.
It's kind of like what like Ao Kwong had a very particular hit chain that was very good, and he had some stats to help him out there to get him past the point. And then he has his 3, which is a low cooldown poke, and then you have your 2, which then fills the gap in between pretty quickly. Like you have to. It's probably more of a per character basis thing, but like there's probably something we can do to help in junglers in general.
Regarding the Conquest map, will it be subject to further visual adjustments? I'll say now, the maps and the game is always going to be up for visual adjustments or adjustments along the way. It's not something that's just going to be left alone. It never has been, really. It's always had some adaptations as time's gone on. So I wouldn't say it's the last, but when the next one comes around, we'll let you know.
People are asking for the year in review PowerPoint. The answer is still if I have time to do it.
It's trying to get everything closed out for the winter period, but also make sure we're ready for when we get back in the office and don't sit there going, oh no, we've got all these things to do in the small place of time. So.
Just organizing the monstrosity of what has happened the last year would be is like a nightmare.
I tried to assist a little bit, but we'll see how far that went because it wasn't even great overall. I think it was something stupid like I want to say like 300 pages of patch notes, like into one document was kind of a starting point of like, okay, now review all that. So there's
a lot that we did this year.
And I know that patch notes doesn't even cover all of it because like not
it doesn't. The hotfix notes and additional stuff that's always not in there.
Like I actually remember because there's an ambassador complaint that was like, why haven't these audio bugs been fixed? And I went and pulled like the person working on the audio has submitted in the last X days 100 submits of audio things, and that's not just 100 tasks done. That was like one of those submits could contain things like here's 30 audio files right. I was like, a submission doesn't necessarily mean it's one thing. It's a submission of like 30 things at the same time. It could be any number of things, but I was like, we're doing a lot of stuff, and like I know that a lot of that doesn't even make it to patch note show. Like I've definitely fixed bugs that end up not making a patch note show just because like by the time it gets out there I've forgotten it even happened.
I feel that's why the community sometimes like, did we ever fix that bug? And sometimes we individual departments might not know, but overall it has been fixed or adjusted or looked at.
Well, it's...
Oh, it is 2 o'clock already. You're right.
It's time is flying.
It's technically flown. I guess it is time for one more question. Or 3 or 6.
Yeah, there's a question I saw earlier, but I've lost it. It was agility, relic, and ROM, and this popped up recently again. Agility relic works differently than other relic keybinds because we felt it was important for people coming in. Like shift is a pretty common thing for things that are combat dodge mobility, and then to add a further complication, it's actually B on console, the default input, which is actually cancel. Which is why I think if you unbind it on PC and you can now right click to agility relic, and that's actually how some people use it. And we think it was pretty important to give something that felt very familiar to people coming in with this type of effect. Whether you agree with that or not, that is the reason it is that way. But it does create some problems and some bugs associated with it. I was talking with Josh this morning. This isn't saying that we are going to do. I'm sorry, Josh, for throwing your name out.
Yeah, I was gonna say you put him right.
No, they don't know. They don't know him by that name anyway. So
true. Just don't say anything. Just don't say anything.
It's clumsy.
It would be nice if we could find. I think we have like a possible solution that would be a nice middle ground for everyone, and that would potentially address things like ROM aspect, because at that point you could just essentially disable the feature and then have access to that. But we'll see.
So we are working on it. It's kind of what we're saying, but we just not got to.
Yeah, like the reason it hasn't been fixed yet is because it's kind of a hack on a hack to get it working the way it is. And we've had a few attempts to fix it that doesn't really address every case. So going back to it, we might run into another wall. So like I don't want to say it's going to be, but it's like I know that it's a pain point that affects quite a few people, and sometimes it feels like we're just ignoring it. And if it was something that we could fix, like we
tomorrow we would. Yeah.
Where do we go when the stream ends? We go back to our desks.
Back to our desk.
Disappear.
Sit in our own. Upload the YouTube video for this. Take feedback and listen to the community review of what we just had. Yeah. And then wait for the next thing. To be honest, we just continue going back to work and doing the other things that we have to do in our days. For the most part.
Yeah. This is a small part of what we do in the course of our days. It's an important part. Like we like being here to talk to y'all, answer your questions, hear your feedback, hear your thoughts on things. But we also just have other stuff that we have to do. So we have to go do all the other stuff.
If you're curious, what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to go run a query about some of the matchmaking stuff I've been testing just to make sure it's still going well. And I will also just be continuing to work on the next character I'm working on to get into playtest.
Yeah, I have a call with a guy about...
We're telling the world what our jobs are now.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
about a publishing platform thing that Bart made an intro, so I have to take a call.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious to see if it's actually interesting. And then I've got some other just like administrative stuff I have to do about planning and boring stuff. So it's fun.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah,
Bart's
Bart's
expected tomorrow. So
Bart's
I'm like,
doing well. I still talk to Bart. He's he doesn't work at Hi-Rez anymore, but he still lives in the area. I had lunch with him a couple weeks ago. But yeah, he's doing good.
Well, it is now 2:02. We've taken the one more questions. We appreciate you all hanging out. Obviously, the full notes will be released next week, as usual, when Newt goes live. And we'll also give you more updates through the weekend. Please, PTS should be available all weekend, so please jump on and test it. If you've seen anything today or have any issues or concerns, please reach out. smite2.com/bugs. Send us the bugs in too. We do care. We do read everything, even if we don't want to sometimes. We definitely get through it all. But thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you all hanging out. And we'll see you all on the battlegrounds. Goodbye.